Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of the Open Concept podcast, where we are breaking down unnecessary walls and barriers that stand in the way of greatness. Our guest today is Theresa Sage. Very nice to have you. Thank you so much for being here. Canadian, now lives down in the US. Maybe we'll get to that in a moment, but have quite an interesting background. And when we started talking about the podcast a little bit, said, well, what do we want to talk about? We talk about healing. Do we want to talk about real estate? Do we want to talk about AI? So many topics that we could cover, and very excited to have you here today. Why don't I let you introduce yourself? I'd love to hear a little bit about your background, and certainly our listeners. I don't think I'd be able to do that justice, so would love to hear it from you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. I super appreciate this. I am Theresa Sage, and I have been a real estate investor for 20 years here in the Valley in Arizona. And about 2017, I had, call it midlife crisis, awakening, whatever you want to say. And my dad actually called. He lives in Ontario. He called and told me he only had 3 months to live. And
wow.
yeah, and I kind of woke up in 2017 and I was like, what is this all about? I've been working like crazy. I have a couple kids. I had the whole like beautiful picture of what success looked like. And I was super empty. And when my dad called me and he said, I only have 3 months to live, I didn't know he was sick. So kind of caught me off guard. And I went into the healing space and I wanted to learn everything I could about energy work and healing and that modality, and wondering why I was empty and felt so empty, really. And so I jumped in that space and took a deep dive there and was grateful because I was able to learn from people all over the world and training in that. And so got into that. He's fine, by the way. He is,
Oh, he's
yeah,
fine.
he's
Okay.
good. Yeah,
All
he was
right. All
stage
right.
4. His oncologist said, his oncologist came in and said, "Oh, you're still alive?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this terrible bedside manner." But yeah, he's fully cancer free. He's doing great, and I'm so blessed, lucky to have him still in my life. And through this journey of self discovery and healing work and energy work, kind of came out of that. I thought, well, I love the spiritual side of things, but the I love this AI stuff because I think you can combine kind of like soul, right? Your values, your morals, your spiritual side, and business. And how does that look? And
Yeah.
so I got into AI and been really a couple years really looking at that space. But I wanted to take it to like, how do we actually use AI to create a greater client experience and to actually like make my life like better without just like, this isn't just like chat prompts, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I think we're past that, right? So yeah, that's who I am and where I'm at right now.
A common thread between a lot of the people that have come on this podcast and different entrepreneurs I've been speaking with is some level of spirituality, some level of internal guide that has, and almost all of them have had a bit of a pivotal moment where they can look back and recall where that time was, similar to your father, where he mentioned, and similar to any, a moment, whether it was a heartbreak or a job loss or a point in business in which they failed, or a really difficult conversation that they had to have with somebody that put them on a very different path where they are now to where to where they were? Because you were investing in real estate. Were you investing in real estate in Canada as well, or was this just down in Arizona?
Yeah, so my whole adult life is has been in the US. And so I actually haven't done any transactions in Canada. Everything has been US
We
based.
won't
So
hold it against you. It's all good.
okay,
It's all
good.
good.
Yes. It's all just like mainly Arizona. We've done deals all over the US, but mainly Arizona.
Mainly Arizona.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's it's very different, but it is something with real estate and investing in real estate building. There is still an aspect of that a lot of people still love to do, whether or not it's their primary business, because it seems to be relatively passive for a lot of people. If you're just if you're purchasing rental properties or short-term rentals, but if you are really going to make a true business out of it, you kind of have to be all in. If you're gonna, I mean, the same goes with really any business, but you have to be kind of all in. Was that sort of where you were finding yourself investing at this point? Were you pre your father getting sick? Was this kind of where you thought that your business was going to go? Like how deep into the business were you? Is this where you thought this is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life? And tell us a little bit about that. And then you mentioned the empty feeling that you had. Was that something that was slowly starting to build inside you before you got into this space? Or was that conversation that you had with your father when he called, was that just a really, really defining moment? Or was there something that was kind of leading up to that, and maybe that was the last straw?
Well, so prior to his call, we had a pretty successful real estate investing company. And when the market crashed, we started a short sale company before anybody else did. So we kind of pivoted and thrived during that time. We're super grateful, helped a lot of people out. And then continually, as the market kind of went up and down, we would shift our business. We were very good at seeing what was going on in the market and pivoting. Um, at that time, I'm a mom of two kids. I have two teens right now, a boy and a girl. I'm very, very grateful. And yes, I was full into real estate, full into, growth of the business. Like, it was funny because Brandon, I read Buy Back Your Time this past summer and I cried because I remember the birth of my son and I was at the hospital doing like writing out checks for payroll. And
Yeah.
I had like 2 pages of emails I had to respond to. And that part of my life of doing real estate the way I was doing it, I didn't know any better. All I knew was hustle and grind, you know, 10, 12-hour days, trying to be a good mom, try to be everything to everybody. And when he called, it was kind of like a big slap in the face. I'm like, is this all there is? Am I just like a human doing? Just like
Yeah.
you get up in the morning, you do as hard and you go as hard as you can and try to, be the best mom and be the best everything to everybody and like land in the bed and be exhausted. And I was like, and literally, I can't even explain it. Like when he called and told me that, it was like I broke. I started sobbing for 6 months. I would just sob. I would be cooking dinner and I would like have tears streaming down my face. And I wasn't necessarily sad. It was like my body just had to release all this, whatever it was. And I was sitting there in my living room and I just looked up and I had this huge plant. She's beautiful. Her name was Veronica. And I'm like,
I
God,
have
it's
plants that have names too. You're not crazy. I have plants that have names too.
and I was just like, I felt so guilty. I'm like, I have two. amazing kids. I have a roof over my head. We have a successful business. I'm so grateful where I'm living. We live in an amazing place. I had great friends. Like, you checked all the boxes, right? And I was empty, and I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, I'm grateful, but yet I feel so empty. And that's where the big dive into this whole spirituality, and it was like healing and fulfillment, and like, what is that people are missing? And I don't know about you guys in Canada, but down here in the States, there's a huge trend for real estate agents and investors who are seeking more in regards to inner peace and inner like fulfillment, and creating great client experience, which is beautiful to see, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Beautiful to see, yeah.
I don't know specifically if it's a realtor thing or a real estate thing that people are seeking out spirituality, but I do feel that in there is more and more and more of that happening. Almost every, like I mentioned earlier, almost everybody that I speak with has had some sort of, and I think as people in general, most of us have had some sort of healing journey, or it's something that we're craving. Those emotions, maybe they haven't been released in the way that you were describing, where you're standing in your kitchen sobbing. But yeah, I mean, that's really powerful. So
Yeah.
what was you that personal journey like for you? And then what did that look like when you decided I'm a very different person. I no longer feel the feelings that I was feeling. I feel fulfilled, and I want to share this with other people. I want to share this with the rest of the world. What was that journey that you went through personally? I'd like you to describe that, because I think that our listeners are going to get something amazing from that. And then at that point, when you get a little momentum, and you decide, I know something now. I have something that I can share with other people. When was that moment like, and tell us what that looks like now.
Sure. For the context of this podcast, I want to really share, because I think a lot of people out there, because of maybe religious backgrounds, when you talk spirituality, there's such a divide between sometimes the thinking of religion and spirituality. And so for this context, I just want to say that for me, as we're discussing this is all God within, right? It's all source, whatever you want to call energy, oneness. And I feel my own personal beliefs are, so everybody can have context. When you go to church and have a relationship with God, you're going to a church to have a relationship with God. When I talk about spirituality in regards to, meditation and my journey, my goal was to have that relationship with God within. Call it source, call it energy. So I think it's the same thing. It's just how you get there. So I just wanted to share that context, because sometimes when people hear spirituality, they shut off because they think of religion, or vice versa, you
Yeah.
know? So I just wanted to, just for this
Yeah.
conversation, know that,
Thanks so much for sharing that. Yeah.
yeah, it's the oneness, it's creation, it's God within, that that divinity that you're accessing, right? And so when my dad was ill and went through that, it was kind of interesting. It was two parallel things were going on at the same time. Um, we're working on the business, and we had reached the ceiling of complexity, right? So we'd reached a certain point in our business where I didn't know what else to do. Like, I had been to everything in regards to real, like, I didn't you only know as much as you know. And so we reached a point in our business where I couldn't break through, and I'm like, okay, maybe I need marketing. So I went to,
Marketing will fix
right?
everything, right? That's
I'm
that's what
sure.
that's what we're told. Marketing will fix everything.
So I went to Funnel Hacking Live, I
Yeah.
don't know if you're familiar, Russell
Oh, yeah.
Brunson.
Yeah. Yeah. Russell Brunson for sure.
2017, at the same time that this was going on. So this was almost like within a couple months of each other. And I went there and I ran into this gal, and her name was Tara. And she said, you need to find, we have very parallel lives. And she was actually one of Russell's energy coaches. And she said, you need to find your voice. And I don't know what happened in that interaction, but like I went back to my hotel room and I just sobbed. And I was like, this is a podcast all about crying. Sorry. But
Hey,
she,
that's all right. You gotta talk about crying. You gotta cry. You gotta do what you
you
gotta
know,
do. A
this is
hundred
for me, it
percent.
was just like this emotional release. And so this was part of starting my journey. I was like, wow. And what I noticed was all of these very successful business people had these energy coaches, like spiritual coaches, whatever, but they weren't necessarily saying it, but
Yeah.
they had them. And I've got some other friends that are in the, influencer space, and we've talked about it. It's very interesting. So I wanted to dive in. I took her program, I took everybody's program that I could think of, that I could find. If I could find, I took how to heal, I like everything you can imagine, because I thought too, if I could help my dad heal, that would help. And he did we did a number of things, but it's not all me. Like, um, but it was just like this exciting new world that kind of opened up, that was like, wow, what does it look like to heal yourself? What does it look like to hold space so somebody else can heal themselves? What does it look like, to actually have like energetic blocks to remove and all the stuff that people talk about? And it was so exciting for me because it was like a whole new world. And I was like, how can I do this in business? So I started playing it with it in business. And how can I elevate like my business with this new, I call it energy work.
Yeah.
Um, this new modality that I was learning.
This
And
newfound magic
this
all of a
newfound
sudden.
magic, yeah.
Yeah.
So I had a group of ladies and I called them wishes come true. And I just wanted to play. I said, this is what we're doing. Every week we're going to get together. We're going to create the lives that we want. We're going to do a couple things. We're going to align energy. We're going to get you in the right headspace. So we're going to clear your beliefs, and we're going to send you off with a tangible action plan so that you can, go ahead and implement what you are creating. And it was so much fun. It was so much fun to do that.
How do you align energy? Can you take me through what that might look like if I had a blocked energy, as you call it? If I had a blocked energy and I was having trouble kind of getting my way through that, and I've come to you and I've said, Theresa, I need some help. I don't know what to do. I'm so lost. I feel, kind of empty or anxious, or like I just need some help. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but I'm trying everything. I'm trying the hardest. I'm talking to God. I'm talking to, the spirit, the universe, creator, whatever, but I feel like somebody's not listening to me. I feel like I'm not getting where I need to go. I just there I can't really describe it, but I feel like I'm blocked somewhere. How do you, is I've feel like myself, I've certainly been there and find myself in that same position sometimes. What would you do? How do you start by aligning energy?
Yeah. Sorry, my dog.
Yeah, beautiful.
Hold on,
Your
please.
dog right there was like, "That's a great question. We gotta
That
we
is a
gotta we gotta
fantastic
we gotta
question.
sort that out." I heard
Yes.
I heard that in the background.
Yes. Okay, so if you're like, okay, Brandon, you're just like, right now, I feel so disconnected. I feel so out of my body. I just need a quick fix, right? Like things are going awry. What I always say is like when you have your body and you have your soul and everything else and just it's so simple, but if you just put your hands on your heart and you like put your awareness in your heart space and you close your eyes and you just breathe 5 times into your heart space.
If there's silence on the other side of the microphone, it's because I'm currently breathing.
Yeah, we're breathing. How does that feel?
Feels great. I mean, yeah, I think I mean, it feels the hands over the heart, as simple as that is. You
Yeah.
feel more intentional about the breaths that you're taking. You feel more intentional about what it is that you're doing. And there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot that happens in that 5 deep breaths.
Yeah. So your awareness, when you go out of your mind, out of your brain, out of your busyness, can drop into your heart space and actually like put your awareness in your heart space. It allows you to go from that fight or flight place in your brain into more of a creative place where you can access more. One, it calms your nervous system, and two, it allows you to access better questions, right? Like you ask yourself better questions, better solutions. It allows you to access those better solutions for your body. The other thing I do when people this goes back to Buddha, and one of the things they talk about is when you're going through, like, let's just say a stressful situation, and if you really tap in, some people are better at tapping into their bodies than others, but if you take a few minutes and just close your eyes, and let's just say this particular situation is bothering me, there should be a spot in your body that you're holding the tension. It could be, you get that gut feeling, it could be in your gut. It could be like, you know, stress in your shoulders. And what I say to people is you take your fingers and you just, wherever you're feeling that ball of anxiety, you put your fingers on that spot and you just hold that spot. And what that does, one, you're acknowledging your body, you're acknowledging the energy that's stuck there. And then two or three, you are also allowing it to process,
Hmm.
which is beautiful. And sometimes it's not always comfortable, but sometimes it'll get worse before it gets better. But you're just processing that stuck energy and it'll process and then it'll release. Sometimes it moves too. So if you're like, oh,
Yeah,
you gotta
yeah.
kind of chase it a little bit, right? Depending on where it's at.
So that's beautiful. And when you said that, I go immediately to my neck and my shoulder, because that seems to be the same place that anytime I'm feeling stressed, I feel that tension. I think you said something really significant. Maybe it's only significant to me, but when you said you acknowledge it rather than notice it, or rather than just know that something's sore, in this case my neck or my shoulder, when I get stressed,
Mhm.
you said acknowledge it. Is
Yeah.
that can you expand on that a little bit, because I think that's a very subtle thing, but acknowledging it, I think that there's more that we can pull out of that. But yeah, you tell me, was that just, is there
No,
more to that, or is it me just picking up on these
no.
little subtle
That
words, or
that is one of the most important things when what I have found in regards to releasing, healing, letting go, everything else, especially in this day and age, is to acknowledge that part of ourselves that may be hurting, that part of ourselves that may be stressed, that part of your body. Because if you, I don't know about you, but like you go, we go, and it's like, this is kind of a very ugly scenario, but like if you have a pile of dog poop on your carpet and you put a piece of, and you try and cover it up with a towel, it's still there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so by acknowledging it, it brings it to the surface. And we can go really deep, but at the end of the day, it's like self-love and like really giving yourself that acknowledgement is so huge, whether you're healing your inner child or, working on a big project or celebrating your wins or healing your body. Just that acknowledgement of yourself. And it's a really huge component that I feel like is kind of missing in today's day and age. And I don't know why we don't. I know why we don't do it, because we haven't been trained that way, but it is very, very crucial, very important.
I find as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, that seems to be where my mind goes. But it's not is you have this tendency to to run through stuff, fight through that pain. Just know, okay, well, this is the mindset, this is the grit that you need. This is what you're going to do. It doesn't matter how bad you feel, whether you feel sick, whether you feel anxious, whether you feel fearful, whatever. All of those can be good motivators to move things forward, and you just kind of push, push, push. And but I say that, but it's as an entrepreneur and a business owner, but that kind of happens with almost anybody, right? I talk to my wife, and she's, that I know that she goes through the same thing in raising our daughter, and we have another one on the way, and she has all of those same things that it comes to, with this maternal instinct, or this drive is like, man, I'm stressed that maybe I'm not going to be feeding my child the right food, and I'm not going to, be able to be the right role model in the eyes of my daughter. Um, all these thoughts go through some, but we are very much trained. I say trained, but it's almost instinctual that we have to continue to move through. And I think that there's a lot to be said with that as well. But is there, what you're saying, what's really helped is acknowledge that. But what is that point of like, okay, we've now acknowledged that there's something wrong. We've sat with that. We've acknowledged that there's anxiety, or that there's fear, or that there's complexity that we're trying to move through.
Mm-hmm.
We have a bit of a quick fix. We've recognized that. We've sort of calmed ourselves down. We've calmed our heart down. What are those next steps that somebody could take to ensure that they're not living in that state, that they're not living, that they're not going to just let go of their heart, and 10 minutes later they're going to be back in the same state? Is it something that can be worked on, and something that can be fixed very quickly with a few basic techniques? Or is this like, it just takes years, or does it take an entire lifetime? Is this something that is going to be a constant?
One of the people I follow is Dr. Joe Dispenza. I don't know if
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
familiar
Yeah.
with his
Yeah,
work.
for
Okay.
sure.
And he talks about this concept of being addicted to kind of the chaos, and being addicted to your negative thoughts, and being addicted to that level of stress in your life, that chaos, that almost like, you're, if you're not feeling it, it's like having, a couple, I don't know, you're Canadian,
Yeah,
so
you're hitting
I
you're
know, I
hitting
love
you're hitting a
coffee,
chord
right?
right now.
I don't
You're
know. I
hitting a
think
chord right now. I think I know
we're
where you're
like,
going with this, but yeah,
we're,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I feel like
we're
you're calling
born
me out right now.
we're born with like drinking coffee is like in my blood. Like I grew up, I was like, I love coffee. So it's like, if I don't have that kind of caffeine like buzz going, right? That feeling of like anxiety, then there's something wrong, right?
Mm.
And it's almost like, so the addiction to, like, we all have, like, I don't know, you can have positive addictions to working out, positive addictions to eating healthy, negative addictions, and that addiction to that state or your mind or that feeling, I have to do more, I have to go more, I have to be more, it's never enough, that almost not enoughness is an addiction because you're trying to fill that void. And so I don't think it's a quick, well, never say never. I think anything's possible. Anything's possible. If you decided today, I'm going to live a different way and I'm going to shift my mindset and my energy, I feel like you could do it. What I've seen is most people need a little bit of training, just like working out, you know, going to yoga, having practices that will allow you to retrain your brain, retrain your energy, retrain your thoughts and actions so that you are more aligned with what you want to create and living from a life of, it's like this energetic bliss. I don't know. I call it energetic ecstasy. It's like this state of deliciousness where you can just kind of.
What is it about there's that, we work hard and we want calmness in our life, right? You alluded to buy back your time. A lot
Mhm.
of that is, you're buying back your time to be able to work on things that you love and create more space for growth, whether that's going to be business wise, personal wise, whatever that may be. So all of a sudden you've put everything, all of these steps into place, and now things are calm. And maybe you're a business owner, and you have hired some really great staff, and they're not calling you. They're not calling you because they don't need you. But in the back of your mind, you're like, man, my phone's really quiet. I should probably call somebody and just make sure everything is okay, and then
Mhm.
and cause more chaos,
Mhm.
right? Or if you're a parent and your kid is doing really well, but you're used to just scrambling all the time, but you're there's this little blip where you think, okay, we've logically maybe you've made some progress, but somewhere in your mind you're like you're waiting for that other side to drop. You're waiting for this to just become total chaos again. You're prepared for it, you're anticipating it, but you're almost drawing that back into your life, and once it's there you're like, man, okay, I have control over something again. You know what I mean? But and that becomes a bit of a loop. And if I would say, if and I'm speaking from experience here for sure, but you mentioned that, um, and you mentioned the dog poo, right? If you have that, you can just cover it up. It's still there. But this loop that you start getting yourself into, where do you kind of break free from this cycle? Where does that magic happen? I imagine it's going to be very different for everybody. And it probably takes a lot longer in certain circumstances than in others. But is there a common thread that you find that helps people break through this complexity ceiling or this cycle of falling back into this same form of addiction to chaos?
That's a really great question. And what's coming to me is what I think is so exciting, right? Is because if you're spending all this time in this cycle of chaos over here, right? And you're creating stuff, I feel like your soul's kind of bored, right? Like
Hmm.
your whole spirit, your whole soul's kind of bored because like you said, you're like nobody's calling me. I don't have any expansion here. Like there's nothing to solve.
Hmm.
And what I love is when you start creating your life, right? And it's bigger and it's brighter and it's exciting and it's 10xing and it's like then all this chaos energy shifts into expansion energy. And like when you see, when obviously I don't know, we know when you're watching people go to that extraordinary level and you're like, how in the world did they do all that? I feel like they're not spending their time in chaos. They're spending their time in creating expansion and amazingness in this world, that all your, because you were so powerful, we have so much energy, we have so much to give, we have so, your soul, your heart, your values, that I think you're bored, honestly. I think you're just
Hey.
bored.
Yeah, I mean that could play a big part of it, right? Because
Yeah.
if you're like me or so many other people, and you have that little bit of ADD, and you're so used to things moving forward. When things get quiet, you get almost bored
Yeah.
if you don't have something to work on, if you don't have a problem to solve. You feel like you're not really needed in that moment. You're like, I'm gonna create something, and so I'm actually needed in that moment, and you sort of default back to that.
Yeah. I agree. I'll tell you, and it was interesting. My daughter, she came to me. I think it was around COVID or before COVID, right before COVID or something. She's graduating this year, but she came to me and she said, "Really sad, really depressed." And she never says anything to me. Like she's never had that conversation. She goes, "I'm a little scared. Like it's pretty dark right now." I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, I have some tools, but I think we should get some other help right now." And she said, "Okay." We're so blessed. We went to the psychologist, or yes, it was over Zoom because it was COVID. She goes, "You're not depressed, you're bored. You're brilliant and you have so much to give. You're just bored." And that shifted her completely. And she is she's not bored now. She has so much going on, but it was such a blessing. You know what I mean? Like what she's got acknowledged, right? You're not bored. You're brilliant and you have so much to give, and you need to just start doing some fun things, or really challenge yourself mentally, challenge yourself physically, like. And it was kind of like the magic switch for her.
Yeah. I'm so glad that she figured that out. That's like I'm picturing being there in that Zoom call, and that spark probably in her eyes when she realized, all right, hey, there really isn't anything wrong with me. We're just in sort of a weird time right now,
Yeah.
and I'm just bored.
Yeah.
You're not bored these days, are you?
No, I'm definitely not bored.
You got a lot, going on.
I have a lot going on. I'm very, very grateful. I'm very blessed. Yes, I'm a real estate investor agent here in the Valley. So we are doing that. I have my AI marketing that we're focusing on agents right now, but we've talked to talked to a landscaping company. So we kind of do like a hybrid off market to on market with AI receptionists. So that's pretty exciting. So we're launching that.
Tell us about this, because I've been to the website, and you can tell everybody a little bit about that. But I was impressed, because you're like, hey, this is our team, and it's AI agents
Yeah.
that are essentially the team, and you went. We took a bit of a turn here from healing into AI, which is fun and exciting, but it keeps us from getting bored. So
Yes.
I definitely want to hear more and more about AI. But where did this come from? And did you have when did you start getting involved with AI? And we've talked with a number of guests about AI in their and the role that it plays in their companies, where it may be disrupting their industry, what they're watching out for, what they're using to really benefit their company and move things forward. But where did you start getting involved with AI? And first, tell everybody about the company, what it does, and then let's move a little backwards from there about how you kind of got into that.
Sure. So I named GetSarah. Her name's GetSarah. GetSarah with an H. And I named her Sarah because I had a VA in the Philippines, and she was fantastic. She was so sweet. She was so organized. This is back right before AI. And we were actually helping people with virtual assistants. So she was going to be the virtual assistant, follow up, and everything else. And I was like, man, I just felt so happy having Sarah on my team because you just felt taken care of. You knew things were going to get done. She was organized. She was always there. She was like, had your back. And like, as a busy entrepreneur, you just want either, your team members or like, my AI receptionist
Yeah,
to
yeah,
be there to support you. So I named her Get Sarah, and then she left.
yeah. Sarah left. Sarah left.
She went to go
You gotta
start
go
her
get. You gotta get
family.
Sarah back. Where's
Yeah,
GetSarahBack.com?
right. And I
Yeah,
said, Sarah, I named the whole company after you. She goes, I know, I'm so sorry. She's so sweet, right? And she goes, I'm going to go start a family. And I'm like, okay, that's beautiful.
yeah,
So I was like, okay, well, I really want to ramp up my business again. I want to like get back into like real estate again. And because I kind of took a little hiatus. And so I was like, what would I do? So I'm like, oh, well, you hire an assistant. So I went and I'm like, hired an assistant and they didn't show up. I was like, what's going on? And I did like this whole week of training and la la la. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I was so frustrated.
They
So I'm
didn't.
like,
They didn't
okay.
show up for the first when you hired them, like the first day of training. They didn't show up. Your new
They
assistant
showed
that you
up
hired.
for the first 3 days and then they stopped showing up. I don't know if they were overwhelmed or I don't like it just wasn't the right fit, right? And I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay. So then I went through the next process and I hired the next person and it was okay, but I was like, man, this like, and I know I need, like, I have people on my team. I was like, these are simple tasks that I need to like answer the phone and like, like simple things that I want. And I was like, wow, I know AI's out there right now. How do I, this is kind of selfishly, I'm like, how would I, in my business, use this AI to, support me to
yeah,
like help our business grow. So we really looked at uh creating this AI agency, right? And I'm like, okay, well, what can they do? And I know in our field in real estate, we have somebody doing I have an investor side, so motivated seller calls. When somebody drives by a house is listed, they call on the sign, right? Buyer sign
yep,
calls.
yep,
Listing, like agent listing, appointment setting, all the things I think you saw on the site that a receptionist would do. And so that was a huge relief. Um, Even last week, my daughter, we were at her soccer banquet, and I noticed, which I shouldn't be looking at my phone, but I got a notification. It was like, hey, you have a motivated seller lead. And our receptionist, Anne, had talked to this gentleman, and he was an older gentleman, and they had a nice little conversation, and he wants to sell his house. She determined, his motivation. And so we're working with him on purchasing his house. So I was like, I really like this.
This was when you say Anne was speaking with him. Is this a virtual
This is
Anne
a
or is this a
virtual
real
Anne.
life
Yeah, I
Anne?
called her Anne.
Yeah,
You can have
virtual Anne.
Robert
So he's
virtual
calling
Anne.
in,
He's calling
having
me
a conversation with virtual Anne. They're
virtual Anne.
chatting back and forth, collecting details, getting everything that they need.
Yes.
And
Fantastic, right?
heck yeah,
And
Anne.
Anne was awesome. And I have Sarah and I have Brian. I have a whole team to answer the calls and to make sure that clients are taken care of. And the one thing I was thinking about is I really wanted to create an amazing customer experience, right? So I drove around my neighborhood and I called on the signs, right? And this can apply to anybody's business, right? Calling
Yeah.
your office, calling your, your business and whatever it is, calling the HVAC guy, whatever it is. And I called the signs and it was either like nobody answered, somebody called me back 2 hours later, like, and I was thinking, wow, like, what if I wanted to create this amazing customer experience so that they could enjoy, like, hey, Brandon, with whom do I have the pleasure of speaking with today?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just creating that just warm interaction so that the first line is warm and friendly. We like our receptions are trained, our AI employees are trained to be very empathetic, very sweet, very kind, and just so that first initial impression is warm and friendly.
How do you train an AI agent?
So with our program, we have a script that we initially, so they get a script that they follow, and then we go back and forth. We're like, we'll call them, check, like, go through a series of evaluation. Like, we evaluate. I don't like what they said here. And
Mhm.
then we retrain them. And then I didn't like this here. And then depending on what your needs are, like, let's just say, you're like, oh, well, if they get angry, transfer the call to me right away. Right.
Right. Okay. So if they
Or
can pick up a like tonality of the client. So if they're really frustrated, they're just going to say, "Hey, hold on a sec while we get you to a manager," and then
yeah,
they'll forward the call to you.
they'll forward the call. Yes. So you can be like, hey, I need to hop on your calendar. They can text a calendar link because you probably already have your calendar set up. Or they can, there's a number of things that they can do in regards to customer service. And I think this is the wave of the future. And people like, this is something really that's coming down the line that is so important. And I don't know. I was on the phone with my doctor's office trying to get an appointment for 20 minutes. So, if you think about even general businesses, it's going to really change how general businesses are done. So things are a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
faster.
We use Telus here, which is it's like a Verizon. I mean, well, you're Canadian, you know what Telus
Yeah.
is, but when my internet or like my cable, Netflix, whatever goes down, and I have to call them, I'm sometimes on hold for an hour, and then I talk to somebody that doesn't know anything, and they ask me to go through this troubleshooting list. I'm like, I've gone through the troubleshooting list. I know how to do this on my own. I can find that. I just need to talk to a person, somebody that I can like get kind of angry at because you've put me on hold here for the last hour, and now I'm really frustrated. And yeah, I mean, if there was just a much better, easier, streamlined solution, that's going to make a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've done that. It's funny. So I have teenagers. Sometimes it's a little frustrating. So I called my AI agent, Brian. I'm like, Brian, having a really hard time with my son. He's a teenager. And Brian's like, I can understand that. And I'm like, thank you. Thank you for acknowledging me. Thank you. So I'm doing my own therapy sessions with my AI agents.
Oh, perfect. You can train them. You can train
Yes,
them, right? So you can call them
yes.
in and say, "Hey, I'm looping again. I'm
Hey,
hitting this complexity ceiling again. I'm
right?
finding myself in this chaos loop." And you can have that script for them so they can talk you back and kind of help you reset, walk you
Hmm.
through, put your hands over your heart, take those deep breaths. So you can program them to do that. And
Definitely.
it is getting really good. I mean, I know when you used to call and it was just an automated voice message and it was very basic AI, and maybe you hear them like kind of typing, blah, 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 blah.
Hmm.
You knew that you were dealing with something that was kind of frustrating. But AI, these AI agents are getting so good. It's hard to differentiate that between an actual human being and AI, and it's only going to get better and better and better. And the thing that they have that most human beings don't have, depending on the person and depending on how well they're trained,
Mhm.
is that ability to not fight back with emotion. Right? If somebody's getting upset with them on the other line, they're not going to peak emotionally so that they're going to fight back and potentially ruin a bad customer experience. Right? They're going to stay calm in the chaos, and they're going to be able to talk you off a ledge and
Mhm.
hopefully find you the answer that you need.
Yeah, for sure. And I love how fast it is. You're not sitting on hold, you're not waiting. It's a lot more faster. It's a great customer experience, you know?
I was just saying it was funny. I think it was an ad on the radio where they were interviewing a guy, and I was listening to it in my truck, and he was a roofing contractor. He was like, "Yep, no, my guarantee is that when you call this number, you get me. My phone is always on. I will be here, and that's my guarantee to you for life." And I was like, "Man, how how much sleep does that guy get? If his
Right?
phone's ringing off the hook and he's literally announcing to the world on the radio that he is going to be answering the phone at any time of the day, 7 days a week. Here's his personal cell phone number. There's only one cell phone number for the entire company, and it's his, and it's in his pocket, and he's the one that's going to pick up.
That's crazy.
That's the total opposite of what we're talking about here.
It's a total opposite. But the beautiful thing is, you can have an AI receptionist answering 24/7 so that you can get the response time without you having to, you know, be the one answering the phone. Could you imagine? Could you imagine? You're like, "Hey, honey, I know we're having our second child and you're in labor right now, but I got to go take this call."
Yeah, I just like I told everybody that no matter what, I was going to be there. I
Right?
know. Where do
Push.
you see AI, especially in this space? Where do you see you understand the capabilities of what these AI agents have now? You understand the technology that's out there and how it's being used currently.
Mhm.
Where in GetSarah, where do you see this growth going? What does that look like? What can these assistants now do, 3 years from now? Understand it's probably a bit of a loaded question, but 3 years from now, 5 years from now, like where do you see them playing a bigger and bigger role in the company? Or is it just simply we just want them to take care of these basic tasks like answering the phone and setting time in your calendar, which is even crazy to me because this is what I'm saying. That's a very basic thing, and it is a very basic thing, but 3 years ago, that was not a very basic thing. 4 years ago, that was not a very basic thing for
Yeah.
something to happen. So I'm really wildly interested in what this looks like 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
Yeah. So at least for us, I was thinking about this question the other day too, because one thing I do know, just even in our evolution in the past 3 months, it's like completely changed over like 4 or 5 iterations, and we're continually upgrading um, all the time. And it's going to look so completely different in the next 3 years that I think the one constant is that it's going to change and it's going to change fast. And not you personally, but I feel people need to really implement this as part of their business, not necessarily a receptionist, but AI is a part of their business because competition and everything is going so fast right now that it's going to look completely different, 3 years from today. But if they're not capturing what they can monetarily, customer experience, profitability right now, and they're like, oh, I'll just wait 6 months, wait a year, you're going to be really behind the ball and missing the boat, if that makes sense. That's how I feel. So change is constant. It was funny. I asked ChatGPT, I'm like, what are the jobs that are going to be around in 3 years? Have you ever done that?
Yeah, we've had
Lots
lots
of
of
discussion of
debate
that.
back and forth. Honestly, because when I first introduced the idea of AI, when ChatGPT first came out, I
Yeah.
started messing around with this. Okay, this is wild. I've heard I've heard about it. I've heard what it can do. It was just released, and now I'm playing with it for the first time. And I heard what it was going to be capable of, and seeing that firsthand was insane. So I knew that this needed to be integrated into our company into some degree. I didn't know exactly how we were going to use it, but our team needed to know about this.
Mm-hmm.
I've told this story before, but when I first integrated to the company, I wrote a full. First of all, I showed ChatGPT. I use Claude as well. Claude AI is a big part of what we use here in the company. But when I first introduced ChatGPT to the company, I displayed it. I wrote out a full operating procedure and framework, how to best use ChatGPT. I walked them through all the best prompts to use, how they're going to get the most out of their day with using ChatGPT, talked about how we were going to integrate it, went over common questions that people often have when they're integrating new processes into a company, and how this is probably going to be perceived. And in that framework that I introduced went really, really well when I read through that with the company and I started to introduce that. But then I said, oh, by the way, this entire framework that I'm walking you through right now was built 100% by ChatGPT.
In 2 seconds or less.
In 2 seconds or less. That was it. It was so quick, but that was a moment. Instantly got some pushback on that though, and I found that there was a few people for sure that were like, okay, I gotta know more about this. But there were some where, just based on their ideals, and this is sort of a new thing, and they're worried about jobs being taken, were wanting to take a stance and say, you know what, I don't believe in that. I think that everything should be done with a human being. This is going to be a problem for a lot of businesses, and it's something that I don't really want to play a part in. That was a bit of a difficult conversation to have with people. That tone has now changed as it's become more and more of a regular thing, and it's proven to be a very, very strong tool, which is what I still believe it is a tool to use. But now the conversation is, if you're not using AI, you're being irresponsible with your time, and irresponsible with companies' resources, and irresponsible with the company's money, because you have these tools, which are, most of them are free. For most of the work that you're going to be doing are available for free in a lot of ways. And it is a tool just like a hammer, just like an air nailer, just like a speed square or a laser level, or all these things that we have at our disposal. AI is now a tool that you need to understand how to use, when to use it, how to sharpen it, and making sure that you're understanding, best practices. And so yeah, it's become a big part of what we do. And we're arguably, we're in the construction space.
Yeah.
Right. We're in it's sort of a blue collar area, which is, we thought when AI was first introduced or being talked about, we all pictured it was going to be robots that were going to be building stuff and walking around and doing this. But and in fact, it was a lot of the creative side, the personal side, the stuff that we thought we couldn't replicate, like art and video and creative writing and all that stuff. We didn't know was going to be replaced first. And we're just over here in the blue collar space. And in the construction space, saying, hey, I feel kind of safe for now. I know it's coming. We can use all these tools, but it will impact us in one way or another. So we need to get used to all this stuff over here. So when it comes and impacts us over here, we already have a really good understanding, a really good context of how to use this. So it's going to make these next stages for us that much easier to get behind, and it's not going to be such a learning curve.
Love that. That's such a great perspective. I think one of the things that maybe some people don't really realize is, like, I love that you said to your staff, you're kind of, if you're not utilizing these tools, then you're kind of wasting time and money not using them. Yes, agreed. And Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
How do you, I,
It's going to be really interesting. Yeah.
back to the energy space for
Mhm.
a little bit,
Yes.
right? Do you find, and this leads into AI as well, because
Mm.
you're sort of in both areas. When we're talking about healing, we're talking about, being very grounded, connecting to the soul with something within. When we're talking AI, we're talking about something totally different. It's not really inside us, it's very much over here. And in this space of, so much technology, so many bots, so much AI, is that negatively affecting a lot of us? Is it because is there a point where maybe you said bored, but do you think that some people are just losing grasp on purpose, or on being able to find a purpose, because maybe they're what they thought was they were a path that they were going to be going down, they've maybe just written that off because they said, you know what, I'm not going to do that anymore because AI is going to do that. So now I have to go out and I have to find something else. But like, technology is moving so fast, I can't keep up.
Mhm.
I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea where I fit into all of this. So where do I find my purpose? It's probably not going to be writing a book, because you can get ChatGPT to write the best book in the world, or a song like AI. I mean, I'm maybe going a little far with that, but uh, that inner healing that is going to be required. Is there, in your opinion, more of that these days required than ever, because there's a sense of lost purpose, a sense of confusion, that could be driven by this world of technology and this very fast paced environment that we're living in today?
Yes. Yes, because people are becoming more disconnected, right? So I think it's finding balance. Like, to me, I always think of it as a heart. It's like half of it is feminine, half of it is soul, and the other half is like masculine, the doing, the AI. So that's the way I look at it. And I heard somebody, I think it was Gary Vee, but somebody was talking about, this. I love how you referenced AI as a tool, right? Because if you think about in the past, um, and all the major changes that we've been through, like the Industrial Revolution, and then we went to like, oh my gosh, we can now make cars on an assembly line. All of the jobs are going to be gone. Like, and then it was like the internet's here. Oh no, like nobody will need the internet. Like the internet's going to take everything away. And then it was, iPhones are like, holy cow, you just need an iPhone and everything else will go away. So it's going to be really interesting because I feel like AI is going to be such a huge part of our lives, but we're just kind of it's almost like evolution shifting into something different, right? We don't really know what that looks like anymore. But yes, there's so much, like anything else, you know, you can have total addictions of something that is negative. It could be AI, it could be anything else, but having that healing, that human part of it, right? That's what it's all about, like connecting to your compassion, your divinity, you know, that human aspect of it is what's so important. So it's kind of funny when I was creating these AI agents, it was one for a great experience for clients, but also it was for a great experience for agents and business owners so that they could have the time and the capacity to maybe meditate more or explore that, have buy back their time more
Yeah,
so
free up
that
some
they could
space.
maybe
Yeah.
explore more of that human side of it, which would be my, I'd love, world peace. But like, like bring back a little bit more humanity into their lives or their world or values or whatever it is. So maybe they could tap into that healing aspect. That makes sense. I don't know if
Yeah,
I'm
makes
articulating
makes
that
total
well.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that a lot. I'm not nearly as terrified as AI, as I once was when we first started hearing blips about what it was looking like coming out. I'm very excited to hear and see what this looks like in the future. We live in a pretty wild time right now where things are moving faster and faster than I ever remember. And my daughter, any kids that are born these days, I mean, they're going to grow up, and like I have to. My biggest fear is how am I going to explain AI to my daughter when she gets old enough to understand and use it, because she's just going to always have been around it. She's not going to know what it was like before that, so she's just going to assume that this is the way that it always was. You're never going to be able to explain that to a previous generation that yeah, we used to have phones that were plugged into the wall, and we used to write all this stuff out by hand, and we used to use Google as a search engine, and not chat gpt, and that might become an archaic thing. I don't know, but it's like I don't know how I'm going to explain it to my daughter. That's for another day, but we'll come back in 4 or 5 years and have the conversation. I'll let you know how that plays out.
That's funny. She'll be like, can you believe Dad lived in a world where there was no chat or AI? That's crazy.
I know. Let me just we talked about a lot today. We talked about real estate, we talked about healing, we talked about AI. We covered a big spread of a lot of different topics. And so I can't thank you enough for coming on and telling us a little bit about your journey and how all these different stages connected us to where you are in life right now. If you had a message that you'd like to leave to anybody that was maybe struggling with chaos, or having difficulty finding their purpose, or finding something that they could really sink their teeth into to get them out of boredom or depression of some sort, what sort of message would you leave with them? What would you tell yourself if you're thinking about when you got that call from your dad and you didn't know that he was going to be sick, and going back and telling yourself now what you know now, what you didn't know then before you got that phone call? What would that message be?
That's a really good question. I think I would say you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to do it alone. I think that's the biggest thing, I feel like sometimes we're on an island trying to figure it all out and battling these things, but you don't have to do it alone.
I love
And
that.
yeah. And like, this is part of the human experience and expansion. This is part of expansion. I think, learning that there's going to be expansion opportunities for you to go through. And that if you lean in, this is your ability to go to that next level, and that there is a next level on the other side of this. Just lean in.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
Lean in.
Lean in.
Don't do it alone.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
You don't have to. There's so many amazing, beautiful resources.
Theresa, this conversation today has been awesome. I appreciate you coming on so much. If people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
Sure. My Instagram is Theresa with an H, Theresa, Sage, Sage. I always say Mother Teresa is a little spicy, but it's an herb. It's an herb. Mother AZ. So Theresa Sage AZ. And if you're interested in implementing AI, you can go to GetSarah with an H.com and help her support you so you can relax in your business and get more time back.
Amazing. Theresa, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for all of your time today.
Thank
To
you.
everybody out there listening, thank you for your time. I appreciate you joining us here. We'll see you next time. Rock and roll.